my beautiful buds. Welcome back to my channel, Sprouts with Joy. My name is Joy, and if you like to talk about plants, you're in the right place. Now today I wanted to highlight some of the lowlights of my collection. Oftentimes on this channel I'm sharing my wins and updates on how plants are doing, typically in a positive way, but I figured that for this video I would give you guys a reality check that no, not all of my plants are thriving all the time. Some of them are sad, some of them have pests, some of them I neglected for a little bit too long, and so we're kind of suffering the consequences of that, unfortunately. But yeah, I would not say that this is a perfectly all-inclusive list of all of the plants of mine that are struggling. I just specifically wanted to talk about the plants that I haven't mentioned in a while, I feel like, because there are some other plants in previous videos I've been like, hey, this one was struggling and we're rehabbing it, we're fixing it right now. Like, for example, my painted lady in my propagation video that I recently released. So I'm not going to talk about her today because I've already kind of talked about her. You know what I mean? Let's get started. Okay, my first plant that I'm going to talk about, I mean, it's no surprise. It is a variety of prayer plant, more specifically the Uppbeat Makoyana or the calathea Makoyana. And this plant, it's so frustrating. Like, for the last 6 months, she's been absolutely thriving for me, putting out new growth and just overall super happy, not fussy at all. For a while, I did exclusively water my prayer plants with distilled water, but then eventually, specifically like in my first trimester, I decided that I couldn't be bothered, so I just stopped doing that. And my prayer plants all were fine. And I realized, oh, well, maybe the quality of my water is kind of decent and not too hard for these plants. So even in the midst of watering with no distilled water, with just tap water, and she was just living in ambient humidity, like 50-40%, whatever, over the summer, she was totally fine. And I just kept up with her watering. I kept up with making sure she didn't get any spider mites, all that. And she was so happy. But now, if you notice, we're getting a lot of leaf curl action right now. And several of her leaves died or started dying off, so there's more leaf curl action. Like, look at that. This was a new leaf that started coming in, but like, it hasn't continued growing. It's just kind of stayed limping like this. And honestly, I don't fully understand what's going on with her. Like, I didn't do anything different. Her soil felt like it was time to be watered, so I watered her. And then I left for the weekend. And when I came back from my trip, she was like this. And she's just, I was like, oh, well, maybe she's thirsty again. Tested the soil. It didn't seem ready to water, so I waited a little bit until it did. So then I watered again. But like, she's still acting like this. And my prayer plants have only ever curled like this when their soil is too dry, but it's not. But I don't think that I've overwatered her or anything like that, because, you know, the soil, like, it's not crazy damp or anything, so I don't know. I might need to just go in and investigate, because this is one plant where I just really don't know what's going on. I don't see any pests on her. I've treated her, but yeah, I did remove a large number of her leaves that were yellowing off and dying, so she's a little bit more barren than she used to be, and it's kind of sad because she was doing so well for so long. Honestly, I do wonder if maybe she has root rot, because that's the only other thing I can think of to where, you know, she would be behaving this way, that her roots aren't taking up nutrients and water and all that. So it kind of makes me sad. I've never dealt with root rot on a calathea or Uppbeat prayer plant, any of that before, because they usually like being more moist than philodendron. And I don't think I let her get too dry either. So I don't know, I'm a little bit baffled because I didn't change anything about what I was doing when she was really thriving, and her environment and conditions didn't change. So maybe I just screwed up once and had no idea, and now she's suffering the consequences. And yeah, she's definitely still alive, but I don't get it because she's been one of my easiest capercias or calatheas that I've owned, so oh well. I mean, if you guys have any insight, please let me know, or experience. I hope that she bounces back, but I don't really know if she will. Who do I talk about next? Ooh. So next I'm going to talk about a plant that I really haven't talked about like much at all on this channel. I think largely because I've been kind of waiting for her to like get bigger and happier to talk about her, because you know, she's never really been on like a favorites list or anything like that, and she's always been sort of a middle of the line plant for me, where obviously I don't hate her and I generally like having her around, but she's also not a plant that ever really stands out to me all that much, and that's my domino peace lily. I think I purchased some plants over Facebook Marketplace, and the lady kind of threw a very, very small domino peace lily or spathiphyllum into the batch. She just threw in an extra plant for free. It was complimentary, so to speak. And I think that she was smaller than even now, but I'll get there. But generally, like, she's always grown pretty well for me. Obviously, peace lilies are pretty thirsty and dramatic plants, so they let you know when they need to be watered and all that. I was so good about keeping up with this plant's watering and everything. Anytime she got the least bit droopy, I'd water her and she'd be happy and she'd grow a ton. But again, kind of going back to like my first trimester, there was a period of time, she is in this bedroom, which is the guest bedroom. I don't come in here like every single day. It's typically to care for my plants or to clean it or whatever. And there was a time when I just like didn't come in here for like a week, and apparently I don't know, I had a brain fart and I just like completely missed a watering for her or something, because I came in here and dude, I 1000% thought she was like dead, like completely toast. Like so many of her leaves were brown and crispy. She was completely flat, fallen over, like, oh, help me, I'm a maiden in distress. You know, like just, I thought she was just croaked, guys. I thought that there was gonna be no turning back. I watered her. She didn't perk back up, but I kept on waiting, and I watered her again when it was time, and then finally she did perk back up a little bit, but she lost the majority of her leaves, which was really sad, because I had gotten her when she was so small and she had grown quite a bit, and I was starting to get excited for how much growth she had, and she had some really cool looking leaves too. But then, yeah, I let her down. So I'm so mad at myself for that. That's like totally on me. Like the calathea or the Persia macoyana, part of that is kind of like, I don't really know what I did wrong. But this one, I know that I screwed up. I just completely missed watering her. So sorry. But at least she's kind of forgiving enough that she bounced back, which is kind of fun. But yeah, you can see that there are, you know, now that I've gotten back on track with her watering, like there's a new leaf coming in right there, and I hear my toddler crying, but she's with my husband, so I'm hoping they're okay. And then there's like another new leaf right here, stuff like that. So I have hope. This leaf is kind of permanently limp, I think, because when it came down, it just kind of like hurt itself, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I have hope, but it's not like, it's on the upturn, but it's nowhere near as beautiful as it used to be. So I have to just keep on waiting. But you know, this is really, I think sometimes a bit of an underrated plant. Like some people talk about it, and they're usually like, you can get them at big box stores and they'll be like massive. But I don't know, there's something pretty rewarding to growing a very, very small baby one. Although it is taking kind of forever to grow to where I want it to be. So it's fine. Okay, next I'm going to talk about two plants that are, I just did like 4. Two plants that are kind of the same, basically. Like they have, I think, the same problems. And they're the same species, but like slightly different variations. So it's my Hoya carnosa compacta and my Hoya carnosa compacta variegata. I'm so frustrated. So both of these plants, I've just had a lot of trouble with them. They're currently both infested with mealybugs. And I think that with this one, it came from the nursery that I got it from because I was just so excited and I did not really thoroughly check. But also, I think that they were just hiding. And then with this one, I had one piece that I got from Florida a long time ago. I cut it in half, rooted one of the halves, and then I planted them in the same pot together. But then from the same nursery where I got this one, I got a small plant and I potted them all together. And I'm wondering, so number one, they've got mealybugs infestations, which I've been dealing with. I've been putting systemic in the soil. It's been just an uphill battle where I've been spraying them and like cotton swabbing them and everything. But it's so hard. Like, do you see all of these little grooves? It's so impossible to get to all of them and to find all of them in the little crevices because the pests just like to eat up those crevices. But I've also been wondering if they maybe also have flat mites, which I don't have like a macro lens or anything like that to where I can really investigate. But if you don't know what flat mites are, it is a variety of pest that pretty much gravitates towards Hoya. A lot of plant owners have recently realized that they're a thing and there's been more and more information coming out on them. I can link maybe in the cards above. Not Dude or Adam, he did a whole live stream on flat mites and his findings because he has a lot of Hoya and a lot of them got infested with these flat mites. And so I'm thinking about maybe trying to start a flat mite treatment because I've been having a lot of the warning signs of that where like new growth is stunted or like looks gross and like certain leaves are just randomly yellowing off and in general they're just not happy. One culprit could definitely be mealybugs. But first of all, these mealybugs are so stubborn. They're the most stubborn mealybugs I've ever dealt with in my life, and I've dealt with a lot of mealybugs, so it's very frustrating. They usually don't freak me out, but like, oh my gosh, they're such a headache with these plants. But also, yeah, I would not be surprised if they also had flat mites. And I wonder if like I got them from that one nursery and I mixed them all in the pot. And then, yeah, several of those cuttings, if you were wondering, like they just pooped. They died inexplicably. So, yeah, it's a battle right now. And I love this plant and I really want this plant to just grow and thrive for me. Like I've seen a lot of them do for other people, but they don't want to. Like, look at how yellow. There's all this yellowing happening and just all this damage and the growth is coming in stunted or like the growth will start and then it'll stop and then the stem will get all woody and like this is all mushy and I'm just like, why? I don't want this. So it's fine. I'm doing my best. I might invest in, I just like hit myself in the nose. I might invest in the proper tools to maybe deal with flat mites. I have the suspicion, I don't know for sure yet because I haven't seen them because you can't really see them with the naked eye, but yeah, I'll just have to do more investigating. But for now, they're just a pain in the butt. They're an absolute headache and I love these plants, but they're being so mean. Well, they're not being mean. If anything, they are being tortured by pests or something, or my own incompetency. I mean, there's always room for that too. I could just not know what I'm doing. Because these are the only Hoya compactas I've ever had. So that's also a possibility, but I think it's more likely that there's pests because I don't get it. Next, I'm going to talk about another victim of pests. And it is another plant in the prayer plant family. And it is my Gophersia zebrina. Now, I will say a lot of my prayer plants, they kind of go like up and down for me. They're a little bit of a roller coaster where for months they will be really happy. Some of my easiest plants in my collection, they'll be putting off lots of growth and just generally perfect. But then they get hit with something and then they like poop out, or they just are really dramatic, like we saw with the Gophersia makoyana. Now with my Gophersia zebrina, the thing that happened with her, so she was so happy, and then she got spider mites.
Oh no. This did not happen. No.
Of course. That's not that surprising. And actually quite a few of my plants in my collection got spider mites. Although I will say, most of them bounced back really easily. Like any of my philodendron that got spider mites, I treated and then I didn't see them pop up again. And you know, their leaves were super hardy against the treatment. You know, they didn't react. And the treatment that I do is just like a mixture of rubbing alcohol, dish soap, and water. And their leaves were fine. They didn't react, whatever. But the zebrina, her leaves are much more fragile. You know, first of all, the treatment just kind of does a number. So I've removed most of the leaves where there was a lot of damage that it wasn't worth keeping anymore. But as you can see, there's quite a bit of damage on some of these leaves from specifically that treatment for the spider mites. And also, even though the spider mites are gone now, I think that they really stressed her out. So ever since she got the spider mites, which I think that was the second time that she got spider mites, and this had happened as well back then, like I don't know, maybe a year ago-ish. The first time she got spider mites, you know, she did recover, but it took a while for her to be happy again, like actually thriving. So similar story with this time around, with this second round of spider mites. She's just not as happy as she used to be. She's not really putting out a whole lot of growth, and all of her leaves look a little bit sad. So that's where we're at with this plant. I'm really, really hopeful that she'll get back on her hypothetical feet and actually recover again. But part of me feels like that's asking a lot. But honestly, like, this has to be one of my favorite prayer plants that exists in the whole wide world, because the leaves are so beautiful. I just want her to be like nice and full again, because right now she's looking a little bit barren, at least compared to what she used to be. Please get better, please be happy. All right, so I think that the last plant that I'm gonna highlight is one that's struggling, is my philodendron mamei. So I love this plant. It's probably one of the most expensive plants in my collection. And yes, there is a stunning new leaf that just unfurled. So he's doing pretty well in that respect. But I will say I've had some trouble with this plant, which has been really discouraging to me. On the whole, I mean, he's still growing. I think that he's generally happy-ish, but with this plant, we've had a lot of like one leaf in, one leaf out, or two leaves out, one leaf in type of deal, and we're playing this little game that I'm not a big fan of. And even now, two of these older leaves, like this one, is kind of like yellowing around the edges, as you can see. So he's definitely going to be a goner soon. And then this one as well. You can't see it as much with this one, but he's definitely also yellowing off a little bit. And this leaf is slightly, ever so slightly deformed, which makes me a little bit worried that there's a pest at play. This plant is one of the philodendron that I mentioned earlier that got spider mites. So I think that he could still be stressed out about that situation. But yeah, this plant is just a plant that I love, but I feel like I'm just constantly anxious about. And I'd love to propagate him at one point, but I've never actually propagated a crawler. There is like a growth point down here at the very base of the plant. And I mean, I see lots of potential. I don't know, this is just one of those plants that gives me anxiety, partially because of how expensive it was and how, you know, he hasn't been like, oh, I just take off and I'm fine, like most of my other philodendron. And I don't know if that's just because he's a crawler and that's a crawler thing or what. I did put him in this rectangular planter, which I think he's happy with. Although, as you can see, like this is where the old leaves were. And it's like, come on, man. I wanted you to fill this whole planter, but at this rate, we're gonna have to like start you over sooner. I don't know. It's fine. But I don't know. It could be a case of me loving this plant too much, to be quite honest with you. And maybe it's all just in my head and my imagination that he's not doing well and he's fine and happy. That could also be the case. So, I don't know. I just want him to hold on to more leaves than what he's doing currently. I want him to be happy. They're such beautiful plants. My goodness. But yeah, it's just, please be happy for me. But it's okay. It'll be okay. I pray that it will be okay. And I just need to let go. So, yeah. Wow, that was a lot of verbal processing there, especially with the philodendron mamei. With that being said, I think that that is pretty much the end of the video. So if you enjoyed it, please feel free to leave a like and comment, subscribe. All those things just really help me out. And also, I would love to hear about plants that you have been maybe struggling with, or plants that have given you a hard time or aren't thriving as much as they used to in your collection. So I would love to hear about your experiences, and if you have any experiences with these plants and would like to ease my soul about it or give me advice, I'm always open to that as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye-bye!